Okay, so yesterday we talked about sine and cosine graphs. So really what we should remember, first of all, when we're looking at a question like this, it's y equals. So, if I ask what can't be those two, is it sine or cosine? So when you think of those words I said to you, sine is axis max, axis min, axis. Cosine is max, axis min, axis max. So you look at one period of this, that's going to be cosine. You look at this one, same idea, has to be y equals. This is starting at the axis, max, axis, min, axis. That's one period. That's a sine curve. So yesterday we talked about changing the A and the B, the amplitude and the period. So when I say what is the amplitude is the absolute value of the number being multiplied. So that's got to be 4. When I say what is the period is always 2 pi divided by b. B is the number being multiplied by your variable. So if you take, and it's always 2 pi divided by that number. So pi over 2, half of a pi, which is b. So now we're going to add, with this, amplitude of 2 and a period of pi. Well, amplitude of 2, that's my A. That's being multiplied by sine or cosine. So it has to be C or D. Period of pi, I have to think 2 pi divided by what gave me pi. Okay, so obviously B is that. If I took 2 pi divided by 1, it would be 2 pi. If I take 2 pi divided by 2, it would be 1 pi. My answer is D. Those are the types of questions you would have on, to start on an ACT. So now we talked about yesterday A and B. A being multiplied in front, B being multiplied by the X or the theta. Now we're going to add C and D. Well, so if I just sort of show you what happens when I look at a graph like this, and I don't know if this will video or not, but if you look at these functions, I got A, B, C, D sort of, but I can move. What's going to happen is when I change these numbers, they're going to move up and down. So like if I change my C, the whole graph moves up and down, which that's the number that in this thing that's at the end. If I change the inside, it moves right and left. And we already talked about yesterday the amplitude, the A makes it go up or down, and then the period, you can make more and more and more of them or stretch it out. So if you saw that, I hope you did. Adding values to the equation will shift it the way it has in the past. Okay, so we're looking at A, B, C, D. Now, what I'm saying here, you can have sine or cosine. It doesn't matter. It's going to be the same thing. It's just a different graph. Okay, so, on your notes, you'll see I do one with sine, one with cosine, and this says minus. It doesn't matter if that's minus or plus. We have to know where it's moving. Okay, so what do our notes really tell us? Okay, I'm just looking at what I wrote on your notes. It's typed. From yesterday, that's my amplitude. This controls the period. 2 pi divided by that gives you the period. Now, when I say it's the same that it's been all year, this goes left and right. Well, it's always been opposite. So when does it go right? When it's minus. When does it go left? When it's plus. This at the end has always gone up or down. When does it go up? When it's plus. When does it go down? When it's minus. Now, the thing I would tell you about this, you do want to know that's really giving you your axis. So when I teach axis max, axis min, axis, it doesn't have to be the x-axis. It could be moved up 5, and then the axis is at 5. Okay, so these steps are on your paper. So, it's you don't have to draw it. I mean, you don't have to write it. It's listed. I tell you to go through, look at your equation. Find the amplitude, find the period. Find the vertical shift, which is the D. Did it go up or down? Find the horizontal shift or the phase shift. Did it go right or left? The big thing is the steps. When you're drawing it, you absolutely positively have to do the vertical shift first. And you'll see that I do that with a dash line. I mark off the amplitude from the axis. So if the axis is at 5, just to give you an example, you moved up to 5. If the amplitude is 3, you go up 3 to 8, down 3 to 2. So now your max is 8, your min is 2. Mark off the period and label it just like we did on Wednesday. Do your 5 key points and you're good. So, I mean, you really have to see it and see some examples to get the idea. So, first one you see on your paper. What I would do first is figure out what's A, B, C, D. So, that's my amplitude. There's no parentheses. No parentheses means no right, left. This is my B. 2 pi divided by that number. 1 pi is the period. This is up to. Now, what's up to? My axis. So, when I draw it, I think of this. And I think, okay, usually I mark my amplitude 3, -3. That was when my axis was 0. So now my axis is 2. So I'm going to go up 2, and I'm going to put a dash line. After I do that, go to here. Amplitude is 3. Up 3 to 5 from 2. Down 3 to -1. So I really have 3 numbers there. Next thing, mark off the period. Now, instead of doing it on my x-axis, I do it here. How do I do that? The same way I did it yesterday. 4 slash marks. The last slash mark is the period. So if that's 1 pi, split it in half, that's a half pi. Split that in half, that's 1/4 of a pi. 1/4, a half, 3/4, and decimals are fine. Now graph it. Okay? When I say graph it, it's sine. Think of your 5 points. Sine is axis, next slash mark, max, axis, min, axis. There's my sine curve. Okay? Look at the next one. 4 cos x minus pi over 2. First thing, think of your A, B, C, D. 4 is my amplitude. B. B is the thing in being multiplied by the x that's outside the parentheses if there are parentheses. Well, 2 pi divided by 1 is 2 pi. That's my period. I got no up, down, but I have that. That is right pi over 2. So I'm going to go draw. I always start here. It didn't move. So that means my axis is at 0. Then I go to here. Amplitude. Up 4, down 4. Period. 2 pi. 4 slash marks. 2 pi. Split that in half. Split that in half. Add the first and the second. A half plus 1, 1.5 pi. Now, this is where the shift comes in. This is a cosine curve. Usually, cosine would start there at a max, at the y-axis, but it's going right a half a pi. Well, if you notice, you got right a half a pi. So instead of starting that x, you're going to start right a half a pi. And you're going to go max, axis, min, axis. No, I need another point. So I say, well, that's a half, 1, 1.5, 2. So that's got to be 2.5. And I got to end at my max. So there's my picture. So now I want to do one with sort of both. So we look at something like this. Now you'll notice I changed this on your paper and I put -1 there. Lots of times in pre-calc we put that first because it gets done first. So we start labeling. Amplitude. That's my A. B. 2 pi divided by 1. That's the period. This. Opposite. Left 1 pi. This. Axis. Down 1. So I think of my picture. I always start there. I'm going down 1. I'm at -1. Now I go to the beginning. Up 4, which is going to take me to 3. Down 4, which is going to take me to -5. Mark off the period. Just the way you did. 4 slash marks, 2 pi, 1 pi, a half pi, 1.5 pi. So now I'm like, okay, I'm ready to draw it. Sine. Sine usually starts at the axis, but I'm supposed to go left 1 pi. Well, if you look, 1 pi is 2 slash marks to the right. So what am I going to have to do? Well, if that's 1/2 pi, that means this is -1/2 pi, and this would be -1 pi. So instead of starting here, I'm going to start left 1 pi. Never skip a slash mark. What does sine do? Axis, next slash mark, max. The y-axis is a slash mark. Back to the axis. Down to the min. Back to the axis. Now you got 2 left over. Well, why do you have 2 left over? Because you started 2 to the left. So that's an introduction. That should help you with the Delta Math assignment, but you got to do these slow. Like you can't just think, like look at it and finish it. You got to think about it and do it slow. All right, I will see you tomorrow.